It's Thursday night and we're about to go to bed, and the kitchen is a wreck because our refrigerator and freezer stopped working. Anyway, that's not going to stop the canning. If anything, it's going to make the canning all the more important. So let me show you what I've got started. Right there is a 20-quart roasting oven, and in it are 4 large bags full of frozen tomatoes and about a medium-sized bag with it. They're frozen. They're tomatoes that have been harvested throughout the last month, and we didn't eat them for slicing quickly enough, and we wanted to make sure to preserve them before they went bad. So we washed them, cut them, and put them in freezer bags. And so this is the tomatoes we've harvested extra that we have not eaten for the last month. I'm gonna leave them in their bags sitting over the roaster oven tonight. Oh, here comes Luna. And in the morning, they should be defrosted enough that I can hopefully pour them in there or clunk them in there and start cooking spaghetti sauce. It's Friday morning and I'm on my way to work. But before I go to work, I did a little something with the tomatoes. Let me show you. Alright, so the tomatoes have thawed overnight. They're not completely thawed, of course. And I've got them all in the roaster oven and set to defrost, a little warmer than defrost. And these are going to cook all day today, all day tonight, and probably most of the day tomorrow before they get canned. We're making sauce. Good morning, everybody. It's Sunday morning, and we started the sauce by defrosting on Thursday, cooking on Friday and Saturday, and it's been simmering down very nicely. Today is the day I'm going to can it. So I just went outside and I picked some fresh basil, and I'm throwing the basil in there, and we will cook it for a little bit longer. Not very much longer, just because I'm waiting on my jars. And we're gonna blend it, and it's cooked down so wonderfully. The house smells like a great marinara. And then the next step is to can it. So let me show you. Here's some fresh basil from outside. Just went outside and picked it. It was nice and green looking and healthy from the rain that we're getting right now. And I'm just gonna pick the leaves off and throw them in the sauce. And then when my jars are ready, which they almost are, I'll go ahead and set up the pressure canner to jar up this sauce. This will be a pretty generic sauce, just tomatoes and basil. I didn't want to walk through the mud to get to the oregano, so I didn't put any fresh oregano in this sauce. And by keeping it pretty basic, it'll have more flexibility in the pantry. If we want to make it into marinara one night or a ragu, we can do that with some other vegetables, onions, mushrooms, squash, whatever feels good. But we also like to have family pizza night. So if we would like to make a pizza sauce, this will be good for that. Probably wouldn't use too much of it for sloppy joes, but I could see that happening. We like to make TVP sloppy joes, so vegan sloppy joe night would be really tasty. Alright, but by keeping it pretty general, we have more flexibility in the pantry for this item. We'll let this cook for just a little bit, just to soften those basil leaves, and then we're going to blend it. And if you notice, we didn't take the skins off the tomatoes, we didn't take the seeds out of the tomatoes. We started experimenting with that last year, and we found for our purposes and our family, that's a totally unnecessary and wasteful step. So we just do the whole tomato, seeds and skin, cook it for days. Well, usually 24 hours, but this time it was 48. Add a little bit of herb, and then jar it up. Katie, any words before we blend up this batch?
Well, it started as 4 freezer bags, and it was literally heaping. As they melted, it was still at the top, and kind of, we had to be careful that it didn't kind of come over. So it's down at least 25%.
Okay.
And it should be nice and thick.
All right.
And so here goes. I
Okay,
just
here goes.
use a stick blender. Right amount of time. It's just like the amount of chunkiness you may want in your sauce. And we left the skins and the seeds in. We don't mind the seeds, and the skins get chopped, and then we don't lose as much, and we keep all the proteins, or not proteins, all the,
there's a little of that too.
yeah, all the nutrients in the skins.
So a lot of people think you really do need to remove the seeds and skins to make tomato sauce, and we
don't.
experimented last year. How do you feel like that experiment's gone?
Oh, I really like it. I don't notice the seeds. I mean, I think that's really minor, and the skins are pretty much chopped up, so certainly don't notice them. And it streamlines. And around the seeds is, I don't know what it's called, but
That jelly?
yeah, the jelly around the seeds has the most flavor and stuff and nutrients. So you want that jelly anyway. By keeping the seeds in, it's all right there. So I'm gonna keep on blending.
All right, we've done some mixing. We're doing a little check.
Okay, so I'm pouring it, and I see there's still a fair amount of chunks. So this is the point of personal preference. How do you like your sauce? And I personally am inclined to kind of leave it this way. I'll do a couple more seconds because you can still see some skins. I don't mind that, but you know, we got a little one. He may be fussy about that this year. We're gonna find out, I guess. He's not eating tomato sauce yet, but he will be. Yeah, so I'm gonna do just
Okay,
a few,
little bit more.
a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay, I needed to stop because my blender stick was making funny noises. Could be that it's at the end of its life.
It's been a good blender stick.
You can see it did,
I'm gonna come a little closer,
you can see I've got still pulpy, but less.
but we like that.
And again, it's personal preference. If you don't like that,
I literally just started the video, sorry. So the blender stick started making a sound.
and we stopped to do a check. So basically it's the kind of pulpy that we personally like, but if you like a smooth sauce, keep on going. I did find there's still a couple skins in here. And again, personal preference. If you don't like that, this is the time to keep going. But this is how we like our sauce, so I think we're gonna stop right here.
All right, this stuff's ready to jar up. That's what's next.
So before we can it, I wanted to taste it. This doesn't have as much spice as we might have because the garden's all mud right now. There's basil in it. And so I tasted it and it was kind of bland, so I salted it. Just sprinkled some coarse sea salt over the top. And I thought I had oversalted it. It was a moment of panic. It wasn't, it was okay. Stirred it in well, it's good. I also put just a smidge of sugar. This batch just was not as sweet as the other batches, and the sugar is just like 1/8 of a cup for this whole roaster pan, just a little bit. So I think it's ready to go.
And do you think we scorched it? Because we did let this one cook longer than we usually do.
I don't think it tastes scorched. It just, to me, was kind of bland and not as sweet as the other batch.
Okay, very cool. Well, we're ready to can it up. I've got the canners ready to go, and that's the second part of this video.
Yay.
I have 3 jars in the large canner, and I need to put a couple more jars in there. This canner's not quite ready to start yet. However, the first canner, the small canner, already has 7 quarts of tomato sauce in it. And the small canner is now doing what we call venting. So right now, there's steam vigorously coming out where I'll put the pressure gauge in a few minutes, and you can see it condensing up here and becoming visible. That is some superheated water vapor, and so getting near that would be really unsafe, you know, burning your finger and whatnot. However, this is a really important step to do. Venting your canner is necessary to get all of the regular atmosphere out of your canner. As much as possible, you want to make sure that you're pressure canning and cooking with only water vapor, because if you have a mixture of gases in there, different gases have different abilities to carry heat, and we want a specific gas, water vapor, to be the steam we use to get to the proper heat. Those other gases might not let us get up to temperature, so venting is very necessary. And now the second canner is filled, and I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil on the rim of the lid because this canner has a metal to metal seal. And then I'll put the lid on. These here knobs, I'll tighten them with my hand tightening opposite knobs at the same time to try to make sure the canner lid is level. And if I don't get it perfectly level, here's what I think happens. So right now, I don't know that I got that canner lid perfectly level. I might need to try tightening it a little more. I'm not certain. So I'm going to see if I can stop this seal that is not happening over here. Meanwhile, I'm going to turn this one up. And we're going to go ahead and bring this up to temperature and start venting it. Okay, I went ahead and I turned off the heat to the small canner because when I looked more closely on this backside, I could realize that I didn't level the lid very well, and this side was much, much closer than this side, which was leaking. So the lid was up higher over here and down lower over here. And with these metal to metal seals, it is really important to make sure the lid is on reasonably level, and I did not hit that mark. So I took it down to a temperature where I can safely readjust the lid, and I'll have to vent it again, but that's okay. Better safe than sorry. All right, that's a small delay on the small canner starting, but it was very necessary for safety. You want to make sure you have a good seal, and that way when you are venting, you're truly venting atmosphere. And then when you do put the weighted gauge on there, you know you're getting the right amount of pressure. This smaller canner heats up faster, cools down faster, has less mass, so it's still going to be done probably before the larger canner, which, by the way, is just about to start venting. Already the smaller canner is second time around venting faster than the larger canner, which is only approaching venting. Okay, so they're both venting at the same time, so I'm going to set the same 10-minute timer and put the weighted gauge on them both after 10 minutes of venting out the regular atmosphere. Okay, they've been venting for 10 minutes, and I want to make sure I put the weight on properly. I'm aiming for 10 pounds of pressure, and it really stinks to put the wrong pressure on there, get it up to that pressure, and then have to bring the pressure down and redo it to the correct pressure. So I'm looking for 10 pounds of pressure. I got to very carefully put this on here without burning myself. Now, what happens is that weight is holding in the steam that is boiling off, and eventually that steam is going to create enough pressure to start moving that weight, which will slowly release some steam, but still maintain a certain pressure inside the canister. So it'll be an additional 10 pounds of pressure, and that additional 10 pounds of pressure is going to be just enough pressure that we can raise the temperature of the water, raise the temperature of the steam slightly higher than 212 Fahrenheit, 100 degrees Celsius. Get us more in that, what would it be, like 240 range? I forget the exact conversion. But indeed, we will be able to increase the boiling temperature and the steam temperature of water beyond its regular atmosphere boiling temperature. All right, better put this other one on. Make sure I got the right side. 10 pounds. Being careful not to burn myself. You can see the pressure's already building on the gauges. I don't trust the gauges because I don't take them in once a year to have them checked. All right. You can also see that the emergency pop-off seal of the big canner hasn't completely sealed yet. It's still releasing a little steam. It's going to do that until it expands to that space, and then it will stop releasing that steam. All right, pressure's building. I set a 15-minute timer for this one, and it's already been going for 5 minutes. It's been pretty steady, so that medium heat was just fine to maintain the right temperature and pressure. And in the last 5 minutes, the big canner has come up to pressure. It always comes up a little bit later, and it has a slightly slower rattle. I just love the personalities of my different canners. This here is a Goodwill special, whereas we purchased this one new. And so this canner here only cost us about 30 bucks, and most of that, okay, maybe it was 40 bucks, and most of that was shipping because canners are heavy. And then for $10 I had to buy a new weight, and like $1 we got a new seal. And you can see that that seal has expanded, and now it's holding its own. So I'm going to turn this down to medium also. And I'm going to set a second 15-minute timer. And then these will have processed. Okay, the small canner is finished. I can completely shut the power off to it. It has plenty of temperature and pressure for processing for 15 minutes. Slowly this weight will settle down and the pressure and temperature will drop. It takes quite a bit of time for this canner to cool enough to have temperature and pressure safe to open it. The pressure has to be back at 1 atmosphere, 14 pounds per square inch, just enough to open it safely. That's going to take about an hour. Over here on this canner, we do still have a rattle, but the pressure is a little high, giving us a continuous stream. It's still at the right temperature and pressure because I gave it a little tap and it still rattles. But my pressure is slightly high, and if you look at the gauge, that is in fact the case. The continuous stream pushing. So I might turn this down just a wee bit more. But if I give it a little tap, it still jiggles. The pressure is so high though, it's pretty much elevating the weight. So we're still good. And we got about 4 more minutes of processing. So I turned the large canner down just a scooch, and we got a nice gentle rock for the last 5 minutes of processing. And time is up, and so I just now turned the power off, and you can see that it's no longer rocking. The temperature and pressure is slowly coming down. All right, now if you want to walk away and have a little rest, you know, this is a great time to do it. Just make sure everybody in your household knows not to take these off. Do not take these off until you're down to regular atmosphere pressure. To do so early would cause your jars to crack. So you'll end up with a big tomato sauce rocket if you take these off early. So as long as everybody in the house knows not to take these off, you're good to go take a break.